So Paulina is coming today from LIT to talk about the critical analysis of the impact of COVID-19 on prospective tourism graduates' educational and employment experiences. Again, a topic that we are all very close to as well. So 10 minutes, I'll let you know if we're running out of time, and thank you.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paulina Bogusha, and I'm a final year student studying business with travel and tourism management at Limerick Institute of Technology. Today, I'll be presenting to you my findings on the topic of the impact of COVID-19 on prospective tourism graduates' educational and employment experiences. Before I get into the study, I'd like to provide you with a brief overview of what I'm going to discuss. So I'll provide you with a topic introduction, followed by literature review findings, my research methodology, data analysis and findings, conclusions and recommendations. So just before I get into it, tourism can be defined as the process of a person traveling to or staying in a place outside of their usual environment, and it's usually for less than a year and more for 24 hours for the purpose of recreation, relaxation, or business. And just in terms of the impact of COVID-19 in relation to last year, it has had a severe impact on the tourism industry, resulting in a loss of 1.1 billion in international tourist arrivals. And this has far exceeded previous crises with the likes of the SARS epidemic of 2003 and the global economic crisis of 2009. Then in terms of how it impacted the likes of tourism, employment and education, it was said to put between 100 to 120 million tourism jobs at risk. And educational institutions experienced a digital transformation as a result. The importance of the study, it's building on existing studies on the topic of COVID-19 and tourism education, however, from a perspective of a final year student. And it aims to add value on the cross between tourism education and employment, as not many recent studies have been conducted on the cross between both themes. Other value then lies in assisting final year tourism students with planning and preparation for their transition in postgrad, and to assist higher education with planning and provide recommendations for the sector on what can be learned from current circumstances. The aim then is to critically assess the impact of COVID-19 and other sector challenges on prospective tourism graduates' employment and educational experiences. So just in terms of the literature review findings then, the tourism industry is set to contribute 8.8 trillion to the economy in 2018, with being a huge contributor, generating 330 million jobs worldwide for the global economy. And it's said to have the highest share of youth workers aged between 15 to 24 in the sector, particularly in the likes of Canada, USA and the UK. Tourism employment then is known to be very female dominated. Most of the employment is either part-time or seasonal work, and some of the main challenges identified were related to the likes of high turnover rates, even racial discrimination, which I found to be quite surprising, and the persisting negative image of the sector. Positives then involved the likes of job satisfaction and intrinsic rewards received from work. Tourism education then can be dated back 50 years. It began as scientific and theoretical investigation as opposed to the training of personnel. However, it can be dated back further than 50 years, particularly in that sense. Then around the mid-1960s, it became more prominent in academic studies, particularly at a higher level, with 967 institutions offering tourism as a subject by 2010. In Ireland, the courses seem to be very female dominated, and there's been a decline in the number of graduates from 2015 to 2017. Then just briefly on the impact of COVID-19, it was said to contribute to a decline in export revenue of approximately 1.3 trillion. And in the case of Ireland, it resulted in 160,000 job losses. However, opportunities exist with a reduced VAT rate of 9%, with plans for industry recovery and the emergence of the COVID-19 vaccine. However, there are still some concerns around that. In terms of the research methodology employed, secondary research was conducted with the likes of the literature review through the use of journal articles, reports, ebooks, websites, etc. Primary research then was conducted using a mixed method approach, wherein 11 semi-structured interviews were carried out through Microsoft Teams with the likes of industry lecturers, professionals, and past employees or students who changed careers. From a quantitative approach, 109 questionnaires were gathered on LinkedIn using SurveyMonkey, aimed at final year tourism, hospitality, culinary arts, and event management students. In terms of data analysis, when asked in relation to the online study experience, some of the main issues identified related to stress, reduced motivation, and online group projects being difficult. However, a positive identified related to more time, to students having more time. In terms of the negative impact of technology, it has had a negative impact on students' mental health, academic performance, cognitive activity, sleep, and led to feelings of isolation. However, 3% of respondents identified that they actually performed better thanks to the online transformation of studies. Some of the key challenges identified by students then related to securing a job in the field, loss of opportunities, motivation, online studies, and lack of social interaction. Opportunities for post-graduation that were identified by students that they'd be likely to avail of, linked to the likes of upskilling, securing a job in another field, further studies, online internships, and even innovation with the likes of people considering to start their own business. So in relation to industry issues, 39% of students actually stated that they experienced stereotyping. However, 29% did not. So this perhaps suggests that the issue of stereotyping is improving. When asked about contributors to the persisting negative image, the most significant ones identified related to poor working conditions and stereotyping when asked to name a single contributor. In terms of the interviews then, when asked about in relation to pull factors, the respondents identified travel to be the most significant one, followed by fantastic opportunities offered by the sector, fast-paced and fun environment, and meeting new people. Push factors then relating to tourism, education and employment involved long hours, antisocial work, and poor pay. In terms of the impact of COVID-19, similarly to the students, things such as the lack of social aspect and struggling with group work online were identified, whereas some of the positives were stated that it's actually easier to get a degree now due to COVID, and similarly to the students that there was more time to focus and devote to studies. In terms of tourism employment then, the negatives of COVID-19 resulted in job loss, revenue loss, compliance with government and safety regulations, and business closures. However, the positives related to the restrictions lifting during Christmas and summertime, allowing the industry to benefit from that, and people adapting to change, as it's a good learning experience for building resilience. In terms of some of the student opportunities or advice, the general one was to build a professional profile and network with industry, to look into something else before jobs come back, and get the best possible degree you can while it's easier due to COVID-19. The possible lasting impact then, as suggested by both respondents, both meaning the interviewees and the final year students, included that technology will be more integrated into the sector in the future, with the likes of more blended courses or work in tourism, and high demand being available for the services as people were not able to avail of it now. Some of the negatives then were that it will take the industry time to recover, and the likes of business closures and things being expensive after restrictions are lifted. So just to conclude, unfavourable working conditions and stereotyping issues need to be addressed, as they're the most prominent ones existing at the moment, and various opportunities are still available to graduates. So of the recommendations, the main one is for industry leaders and stakeholders to work together to reposition tourism to make it more attractive as a career choice. For graduates, it's to be innovative, develop their online presence, and explore possibilities. And then some further study include the influence of celebrity chefs on an industry image, and just perhaps some other further study relation to the educational institutions or their approach to tourism courses. So thank you for listening, and I welcome any questions.
Thanks, Emilia and Paulina, for your presentation. And it is unnerving enough to present, but as well with technical issues in the way. Thankfully, your presentation was, the connection was faultless, and that came across very well. So thank you very much. And just would like to open up for any questions that anyone may have.
Paulina, do you think it's a hierarchy within the tourist industry, as in the type of jobs that you get, like that there's a hierarchy? And if you don't feel comfortable answering that one, it just made me think of how technology is changing tourism, as in we all can go and have a virtual tour of the south part of the island of Iceland. And, you know, there's a huge impact coming down the line, isn't there, for future employment?
Definitely. But one way of looking at it is also that with the likes of the integration of technology in tourism employment, it could actually result in a lot of opportunities being generated also, particularly with the likes of tourism graduates, as actually one of the recommendations also that was advised by the interviewees was with the likes of modernizing the courses more. And one of the suggested topics was to actually integrate the likes of influencing or blogging into the courses. So that'd be interesting just to see how technology is actually further integrated into the sector, because it's not necessarily all negative. There are positives in the sector as well with the whole online transformation. And just going back to the whole hierarchy, to some extent, I feel like there is a hierarchy, and perhaps the tourism sector kind of needs to address this more. And they need to kind of see the people working for them more as professionals. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. You did well.
You
Thank
answered
you.
You answered the question very well,
Yeah.
Paulina. And indeed, it's what a challenging year for students, but especially students in the tourism sector. But as you rightly point, there may be new opportunities that are unthinkable at the moment, or just in exploration at the moment. So with this presentation, we finished today's session. Thanking you all for your presence here, especially those of you that stayed all the way through. And